Hello, everyone. Today we're going to start a new chapter of this Best Cultural Summit. The past 2 days we talked extensively about education beyond the pandemic, but now we're also looking beyond the education. Throughout history, work and employment have always been changing. Definitely in times of great turmoil in politics, economy, environment, or any other societal changes, the way we work evolves. Right now, living through the global crisis will, of course, also have its effect. In order to introduce these topics, I have three lovely people here with me. First is Davide from Italy. He's the current president of the Best Alumni Network. We also have Vale from Lyon. He's the current corporate relations department coordinator in Best. And we have Fleur from Belgium, who is the current donations project coordinator. I would like to ask all three of you to tell all of us, what do you think will be the biggest change in work and employment after the pandemic?
I'll start then. I think that, okay, this is of course a very big field, but I think the main change that we will see is the change in the percentage of remote working. I think that in general, we will have more people working remotely, and we will have more flexibility from the companies, like in a general trend. Now, this can be split in different ways, and also the survivability of the companies will be determined by this. So one thing that that can make a difference is the culture of the company. So there will be some companies that I think will be more open, and some that will maybe push more of the people to come back to the office. The big companies have the luxury to do this, so I'm not sure how this trend will go. Regarding the small companies, I think that the ones that will adapt better to the situation are more likely to survive and are more likely to eventually thrive, while the ones that couldn't adapt, I am afraid that may fail, may just close. And I am not sure that this will give space for new ventures to come out, because I don't know how much the economy will shrink. So generally, the small companies are, covering the gaps, and maybe those gaps will not be there anymore, at least like for a certain period. But we don't know. So we will need to see how it works.
Yeah, it will indeed have quite an effect on the global macroeconomy and on larger corporations. Thank you, Davide.
Cheers.
Vale, would you like to also weigh in?
Maybe I can go next. Well, to build a bit on what Davide said, I totally agree with his vision of work from home and this competitivity between big and small companies that can adapt fast. I think in general, the place of the office will change a lot in the near future, and we've seen this with now companies getting online, most of them. So no, I think the office won't be just an infrastructure in which you meet with your fellow colleagues, you work together, but maybe on completely different projects, and sometimes you share a cup of coffee, but it may actually be way more than this. So I envision companies cutting a bit, for example, on infrastructures that are not necessary, and invest on infrastructures that engage more collaborative work, more client engagement too, and all these aspects. The second thing I think that is really important in developing is digitalization. And this will also impact a lot of students in terms of the learning process that they will have to go through to keep pace with the fast change in work nowadays. And potentially in the future years, we'll see a massive change in this area of learning and improving ourselves.
Yeah, definitely the individual experience of being at work will change quite a bit. Definitely now that we've seen some changes happening during the pandemic, and the follow-up of that is uncertain. Fleur?
Yeah, I would like to compliment what Vale and Davide already said. I also believe firmly that remote work will be in an uplift in the coming days and months and years even. I also see that this might have a very beneficial role in our environment. Regarding sustainable environment, we are certainly having a good impact if we're all remote working. So that's why I also think that there will exist new forms of employment, actually. So employment that happens from home, employment based on maybe sort of tender projects or of, how do you say it? When you have your own business, that like small people will work from home on their own, but that other people can hire them for doing specific tasks. So I think we will see a lot of this. As big companies also need to adapt, they will try to have these smaller startups, let's say, to help them in this process. And really the employment will change a lot. I also see that this local environment will become way more important for us, and that's what Vale said about the office being very valuable. I think it will be a valuable place to go to if you need to change your location. You just go to the office for some quality time, and I think that will be one of the greatest changes in work and employment.
Yeah. I think definitely we're seeing that there will be probably a large change. Some of the changes were already going on for decades and now will be fast-tracked. Some new changes will happen, obviously, based on solely this single occurrence. During the next few days, we'll definitely all hear a lot more from experts in all the fields. We can't discuss the whole extent of the change in work and employment in just a few minutes. However, we are also here mostly as young people, as students or young graduates. And that's why I would like to ask the three of you, what can young people do to be engaged in this, and why also is it very important that they are?
So I'll start again. I think that is very important for young people to be engaged in this situation. This is one of the most, I think, most clear example of how being updated on what's happening in the environment around you is critical for you to make your choices. So being updated on the situation and on what the trends are for the various companies and for the market in general will allow you to understand what resources you need to to invest. Let's say how much you need to learn, what skills you need to develop in order to keep being competitive, because we are in a competitive world, and of course who adapts faster is always in advantage. There is another point that is not only being updated, but also frequenting the hubs where these changes are actually discussed. You may even influence what the future will be. So accessing those hubs and being actively involved in the discussion may actually shape what are the environment what environment you will be on later on.
Yes, definitely. Individual action in shaping your own future will be as important as ever, or more important than ever. Fleur, would you like to complement something?
Yeah, I would like to say that, as Davide said, it will be very important to adapt and for each individual young person to shape their skills in order of what the new employment will offer. And for this, I think that young people are in an advantage. They really have a position where they can see and reflect on the world in a very open way. They're still not tied to one vision. they are very open to new things. So that's really an advantage. And also the drive that young people have will be what they can put into this change in work and employment. They can put their drive into this, they can put their vision into this for the future, because they will shape the future, they will be the future. And yet they also will have their own children one day, and then that will just make sure that they really are just the ones who shape the future and the ones who can now start thinking about all these changes that need to be done.
Yeah, young people, as always, will have to be change makers in many ways, and that's what I'm saying. Vale.
Yeah, I think it's super important to consider this, that they will be the future, and just for this reason, you know, they shouldn't be passive, especially right now. They should be proactive in everything they're doing. So as Davide said earlier, they should be proactive in learning, in getting new experiences of the world, experiences of the skills that they may want to have in the future. So, you know, taking part in activities in their schools, for example, in student organizations like we're doing here, can really, really help to build their skills. And I think right now we have more and more opportunities on that aspect too. More and more companies are hosting boot camps, workshops, etc., etc. So I think it's really valuable, and I really encourage students to go to that site and try to experience things. But the other thing is proactivity on the external world also. So you both also guys said this, but I think it's super important to have an understanding of what are the problems in the world right now, in sustainability, in equality in the workplace, and also understanding that maybe in the future work is going to change drastically. The skills required to be a worker now are completely different than the one that will be the case in 10 years. So it's super important to understand this, take part in conversations and conferences, and that's why I think student organizations also like ours, but like also a lot of different student organizations are super valuable, because they help the students make a first step in this understanding of the global world that we live in.
Yeah, indeed. As what I was saying, we need to also not look only towards shaping our own future, but towards shaping the whole system in a way that we or the people after us will be part of. And indeed, we are also here not just as individuals, but also as part of student associations, either the Bestseller Network or BEST. So I'd like to ask, how can we as NGOs help make sure that there is a proper collaboration between all the relevant people, all the relevant bodies that need to be involved in the changes in work and employment?
So, I liked a lot what Vale said. The NGOs are a good place for the students to train themselves and to be adaptable. So yeah, this is actually a good way to to see one utility of the organization. But I think like what is critical now from like something that the organization themselves should change is to have some dedicated effort in finding who are the people or the departments that especially the big companies dedicated to this crisis. So I expect that every major company has some dedicated channel or some dedicated something. Once like all of the like all the information is gathered from these sources and from other sources that could be political organizations or humanitarian organization or neutral ones, let's say, having a summary of all of this information in a structured way, and then propose this filtered information to their target, because they will know what the target that their audience is. So for example, Invest will be technology students. They will for sure need more a certain subset of this information rather than the whole noise that could be in a situation like this.
Thank you, David, for this perspective. I also saw that Fleur has something to add here.
Yes, I just actually, it was still on Vale's point from before, that we still that we need to look to the outside also as NGOs, that we need to look to the outside, but also what Davide said about having this look at companies and having like this broader perspective. I think it's very important for NGOs, and I believe that they can be the connection, that they can shape events by connecting people. So they are the ones who can bring people together. They are the ones who can bring like different generations, different nationalities. They can all bring them together in events, whether they be online or offline events. Like nowadays, maybe online events will boom, but still it's this connection role that's very important. And I think that every individual that is linked to an organization should be aware of, hey, I am in this organization, but I should also look outside my organization and try to connect with other people. And that's what I find very valuable for the future.
Yeah, definitely. There's strength in numbers in many ways, but it is also very important to not limit yourself to just what you know already, and look further to understand what lies ahead. Vale, would you like to add something as well?
Yes, I mean, I really liked first the idea of like having an organization, student or not, as a stream of information that corresponds to your needs. So the organization is here to filter all the information in the world and target them to what you care about. You may care about different stuff. You may be in different organizations, but that's a really interesting way to see things and to get what you need out of this world where information flows are enormous. But the other thing I think that makes organizations such like ours so powerful is to bridge this gap that we still have between universities and the workplace. So I believe companies are trying to shorten that gap more and more. They are trying to host workshops, as we said earlier, in universities. They're really trying to merge basically somehow the workplace and the university to have a continuous flow. But I believe it is tremendously difficult. Also because as teachers in universities, as researchers and so on, sometimes it's difficult to be really completely connected with what is happening in the workplace. And this is where I think student NGOs like BEST are really powerful to make this bridge actually happen and to allow, I'm thinking about some of our events where we allow companies to host specific events with students, and we foster this collaboration with the universities, with the companies all together to make sure that students are learning the proper skills and that things are moving fast, because like changing institutions like universities, for example, can sometimes be really slow, and it's normal. They're massive. They've existed for years, whereas we are more flexible than this, since we're young, we're students, and we're of course way smaller. So we can make this change happen much faster, in my opinion.
Yeah, while the rest of society is catching up, while the large institutions are changing their direction, we can, in the meanwhile, do what is needed and guide the change in the right way, try some things. This is very neat, very interesting perspective. This is in the end also why we're here in the virtual summit, for us as students to take action proactively, to see what we can do to improve the situation, to see what we can do to make sure that young people know where to go after this as much as they can. For this, we will have quite many interesting things going on in the next 2 days when it comes to work beyond the pandemic. Vale, can you explain to our viewers what they can expect to happen?
Sure. So first of all, well, I'm delighted to be responsible of the partnerships. Of course, I really want to have a big thanks also to Daniel, that worked really hard to get the speakers, and also Walid. So I think we really have a lot of beautiful speakers, amazing sessions. Most of them will be some keynotes. I think it's a bit like a TEDx talk, but with more focus on our vision of society, I would say. So really interesting keynotes from leading organizations and institutions, as in the past days for education. Thinking about the World Economic Forum, IBM, B Engineering, etc., etc. So we have a lot of keynotes on those 2 next days on work. Then we have some panel discussions. I think they're really interesting. I don't know if you guys had the occasion to go to the 2 ones that we had previously, but I personally really enjoyed them, and I'm really looking forward to the new one that we'll have today. And finally, something new that we didn't have so much. We had one, but that's all. We are going to have quite a lot of workshops on this work beyond the pandemic subtopic in those 2 days. So tomorrow we'll have 2 workshops. I really invite all the students to go and register for those workshops, because those are sessions that are not open to everyone. Let's say we have a limited number of participants. So I really suggest you guys to take a look, to apply. They're really cool. And also tonight we have a networking night with some of our partners. So as always, I really suggest you all to take a look, apply. If you don't know where to find it, just go on the website on the Work Beyond the Pandemic little subtopic, and you'll find everything here, all the information needed. And otherwise, you can just approach us in the comments, I think, and we'll be delighted to help you find the sessions that fit you the best.
All right, thank you, Vale. That is it for now. In 10 minutes, the first keynote will start. 9 minutes, the first keynote will start from the World Economic Forum. It will be on the same channels, so I hope you will all stay tuned. And I for sure hope to see many of you around in workshops or the networking event tonight. That said, enjoy these upcoming 2 days of the Best Floater Summit, and goodbye, everyone.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.